Hey everybody, today I wanted to continue our lesson from last time when we were talking about creating some nice altered voicings using the major triads that are found within the altered scale. So if you remember, there were two major triads that happen in this scale, the flat 5 triad and the flat 6 triad. So we looked at how to use the flat 6 triad and how to apply it to some dominant voicings and how to create a cool sound that way. Today I want to talk about the flat 5 triad and what it sounds like and how we can get into our playing. So before we get into the theory and some of the voicings, I just wanted to play you a quick little example just to show you what it sounds like, and then we'll delve a little more in depth into it afterward. So I'm just going to be playing some 2-5-1s and 6 back to the 2 in the key of F, just so you can follow along. Okay, cool. So now let's take a look at the theory behind the flat 5 triad and look at why it sounds the way it does. So let's just take a C7 here, and I'm just playing the root, the 3rd, and the 7th. And let's take the flat 5 triad, so in this case over C7, it'll be an F sharp or G flat. And so now let's look at what notes this triad gives us. So over C, F sharp gives us a sharp 11 or flat 5, B flat or A sharp gives us a flat 7 of C, and C sharp or D flat gives us a flat 9 of C. So we have the sharp 11, the flat 7, and the flat 9. So out of those notes, the sharp 11 and the flat 9 are the ones that don't really belong to C and are considered the altered notes. Those notes not only occur in the altered scale, but they also occur in the diminished scale. So that'll be the topic of another video, but if you understand how the diminished scale works, there are some very cool things you can do with that. Okay, so now that we know and understand what the notes are in an F sharp over C7, or the flat 5 triad, let's take a look at some voicing methods. So if we use the same method that we used last time with the flat 6 triad, of using the triad on the top 3 strings and the guide tones on the bottom 3 strings, we won't really get the characteristic flat 5 over 1 sound. Let me demonstrate. So if we have the over C7, F sharp triad, I'm just playing it on the top 3 strings here, and the 3rd and 7th of C7, E and B flat, and play that all together. To me, that just sounds like an F sharp 7 chord in one of its inversions. It doesn't really have any hint of C7 in it. The theory behind that is because of tritone substitutions and shared 3rd and 7ths between dominant chords that are tritone apart. And if you don't really know about that topic, that's totally fine. Leave a comment below and I'll be happy to make a separate video about it because it makes up a whole nother subject in itself. But for now, we can just hear that that doesn't really sound like the nice, dense, flat 5 over 1 sound we're looking for. So we need another rule to go by. So instead of putting the 3rd and 7th in the bass, let's try putting the root in the bass. Now this works because the flat 7, the other guide tone, this in this case B flat over C, is already implied in the upper structure triad. As long as we have one of those guide tones, the dominant sound of the chord is in the listener's ear and we don't have to play the 3rd. And honestly, at this point, I prefer not to play the 3rd, as it kind of muddies up the chord. So here's just one example without the 3rd. And then if I put the 3rd in there, it just kind of gets a little too thick on the low end, down there. So we can just leave it out. So our rule for creating voicings here is going to be the upper structure triad in the inversions, with the root, C, on the bottom. So let's just take a look at a few of these. So we have to make sure we know our inversions of our triads. So we have our F sharp triad, root position here, first inversion, and the second inversion here, I'm just barring at the 11th fret. And then on the top 3 strings, Alright, so now all we have to do is put the root underneath of those. So let's start with this one here. On the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string, we have the root, the 3rd, and the 5th of the F sharp triad. Underneath that, we play the C. So we have, and there we go. Go into the next inversion. Now the closest C for us to grab here is right here. I grab it with my 3rd finger. And we go to the next inversion, which is up here, in the 11th fret. And again, the same C I'll grab, except this time with my 1st finger, and I'll bar the 11th fret with my pinky. Okay, so now if we move on to the top 3 strings, we have the same inversions, just starting in the 1st inversion this time. And we'll put the C here, and then the next one, there, and then the last one. Now for this one, I just grabbed a C that's right on the 4th string, which is a little closer, right there, the 10th fret, rather than trying to make this awkward stretch, which is doable, but it probably isn't super practical in a playing situation. So there you have it. We have 6 ways of doing the F sharp triad, and we just put the root under all of them. Alright, so now that we know these new voicings and they're kind of starting to get into our ears, let's talk about some ways that we can get them under our fingers so that they start coming out naturally in our performances. So what I'd recommend doing is basically what I did at the very beginning of this video, which is take common progressions such as 2-5-1s or any progression really you can find in a jazz standard, and just apply this new voicing in as many possible places as you can, and do it in different keys and in different areas on the neck. Just try to hit every inversion and chord that you can. Just cram it all in there. And you wouldn't do this in a real playing situation, but the point is to overdo it so that it'll start to come out naturally and you'll start to ingrain it into your head. So I'm going to play part of the original progression that I played in the beginning, which was just the 2-5-1-6, 2-5-1-6 in key of F, and really emphasize where the flat 5 over 1 chord is, just so you can see. So here it is. So in that situation, I was trying to keep the melody note, or the top note of the voicing, going up by semitone through the whole progression, and it worked out actually pretty well. And just using a voicing underneath, and whenever I came to a dominant chord, using our flat 5 over 1 chord. Alright everyone, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions about what we talked about today, or if you have any ideas for future videos, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Until next time, keep practicing, and I'll see you then.